Welcome to Business Insight on Plus TV Africa. Today we are diving into a global issue that may seem far away but could hit closer to home than we think: trade wars. Now, when the United States slaps tariffs on China, Mexico, and Canada, it is not just their problem. The ripple effect could impact Nigeria in big ways: energy prices, trade opportunities, foreign investment, you name it. So what does this mean for us? Could Nigeria step up as a key supplier for the United States? Will rising oil prices boost our economy, or will Nigerians feel the pinch at the pump? And with China looking for new trade partners, can Nigeria businesses seize the moment? We'll explore all these angles on the show today. Stick with me. I am Justin Akadonye. All right, welcome back from that report. Amid these trade wars, one Nigerian entrepreneur is stepping up with a solution helping local businesses get international visibility. Joining me now is Kenechukwu Nnamani, CEO of Z-Ship. He is here to break it all down on how these trade shifts could affect Nigeria and how his platform is putting Nigerian businesses on the global map. Many thanks for joining me, Kene. Good morning to you.
You're welcome. Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. I trust you're doing well.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Thank you.
Okay, so let's just get the show on the road as it is now. The United States is raising tariffs on China, Canada, and Mexico. How do you see this playing out for Nigeria's economy?
Well, essentially, there are indirect, effects of this current trade war. At some point, people thought it would just be something that the United States would probably just put out there just to see some kind of diplomatic relations going on and certain things to be corrected between the trade imbalances. But looks like he's making sure that the trade war goes in effect and the tariff goes up from March 4th. So I think for Africa, the only way it indirectly affects Africa or indirectly benefits Africa is the fact that so many people are going to start shifting their supply chain and looking for other supply chain alternatives. Thank God we have the AfCFTA. And in that way, if there are certain products that different African countries cannot manufacture or produce in the volume that is needed by either the US or Canada or Mexico or China, AfCFTA will somehow be able to, put together what they have across board in Africa and make sure that those products are supplied in the quantity that is needed.
Okay, before I get into more discussions on opportunities, let's just take you up from where you stopped. Speaking about the AfCFTA, it has been around for a while, but do you really think Nigeria has been able to, harness all of the inherent, opportunities, therein?
Well, I think the major challenge that I foresee at the moment when it comes to AfCFTA is on the logistic aspect of things. I know for now there are so many products that are regarded as Ghana products that are Nigerian products. When you go to certain Afro-Caribbean stores in the United Kingdom or in the UK, you're going to see a whole lot of Nigerian yam, and when it comes in, the packaging comes in as Ghana products, So I think we've not been able to design a model where we can make sure that we can, move products to certain countries and make sure that those countries, if they have demand for export for those products, Nigeria is making it available. So logistics is definitely something that needs to be worked on. And that is why if you look at China, they've managed to actually solve that problem using their One Belt, One Road initiative. So there's already a land movement and rail movement of Chinese products going into Europe and then going into some Asian countries.
Okay, but still talking about this trade wars, do you really think Nigeria could really benefit from the United States, maybe looking for new oil suppliers, or is this a double-edged sword as it is?
So it's going to be a back and forth, issue between the United States and some of these other countries like Mexico, Canada, and China. I'll give a typical example. People are already, I mean, the news just broke out just a few days ago or just 2 days ago, and people are already looking for alternative sources to make sure their supply chain keeps moving. I, for one, I have a company that already reached out that they want Nigerian coffee. And these companies, I think they've been getting their coffee supply from their US arm, and some of them are getting coffee supply from China. And most of these products are actually being moved down to China and then moved forward to other countries. Now, companies in the UK that have coffee shops are already looking for alternatives in Africa and saying, okay, you know what? Do you think you can meet this demand, even if it has to be air cargo? Can you meet this demand weekly for our consumption? And I can tell you for a fact that what we have here in Nigeria, and with the current growth of coffee farms in Nigeria, coffee bean farm in Nigeria, we definitely can meet up with that demand. But yeah, I mean, the two big guys are fighting, and then, I think somehow Africa can, benefit from that.
Okay, fine. So let's talk about, from where you just mentioned, you talked about the opportunities, but then let's talk about practical steps per se, because there are so many opportunities, with all of these trade wars, but are we really positioning ourselves as a top choice, or what more can we do to position Nigeria as a country as a top choice?
So awareness is very, very important. I know in some of my platforms, I'm already telling Nigerians and promoting and telling people that this is the right time for you to start, pushing, sponsoring ads to these countries as an African, entrepreneur. There are already certain payment options available for you to actually get paid as a Nigerian if you want to sell to these countries. But then awareness is very important, and creating logistic routes that are practical and affordable. Because a typical consumer or a buyer in those countries would definitely want to know that if I'm paying for this product, there's some form of escrow that is going to hold the seller accountable so I can receive exactly what I've bought.
All right.
So awareness and making sure that people know that this is an opportunity that is open is one way Nigeria, or we can prepare ourselves for what is coming.
All right, before we talk about opportunities and the platform that you have created to show Nigeria to the world now, many Nigerian businesses struggle with logistics, like you have said, and production quality. But what challenges do you see in competing with countries like Vietnam and Indonesia?
So there's definitely going to be some form of supply chain shift when it comes to logistics. So if you check, Southeast Asia is going to focus on Southeast Asia. So there's going to be influx of product moving from China to neighboring countries around Asia, more than it's going to every other country or different other countries, because those countries are now going to be the ones to start feeding the United States. So typically, for example, China might start moving more shipments into Vietnam, United States or Canada or India. Now, when it comes to logistics, Africa is well positioned, especially Nigeria. We have frequent air cargoes moving from Africa, Nigeria to other countries. For one, Z-Ship, that's my own platform. We have customs license, and we have been able to move shipments from Nigeria to different countries like the United States, China, UK, and any other country. And we try to list businesses so that when we see some other companies in Asia trying to buy African products, they can find companies that can actually supply those products from our own platform. So I think somehow the logistic aspect of things, we can compete with Vietnam if our manufacturers and if our suppliers are seen by the buyers. Because the logistic line is not rocket science.
Okay, so let's talk, now that you have mentioned, let's talk about your platform, really. I know that you have created some sort of opportunity so Nigerians can be, showcased. So how is it really helping local indigenous businesses gain international exposure? What problem exactly are you solving, and how does it really work?
So the problem we're trying to solve is that, when you go to China, for example, so many of them will say they want to buy African products, but they don't know how to find the African seller. And there's usually a language barrier thing going on. So what we've decided to do is that instead of creating logistic routes from Nigeria to these Asian countries, we've also created a business listing feature on our mobile app that lets the Chinese people or Francophone countries to get on our platform and see people that are able to supply certain products. So that's a form of exposure for those people. And at the same time, we've promised the Chinese counterparts or maybe the Francophone counterparts that they can also list their companies on our platform and also get African buyers. So somehow there's a win-win involved. Now, but what makes it better is that you're not just finding who's selling that product, you're also able to move that product after it's purchased via the same platform to your country. So there's some form of guarantee in between. And then the payment model and receiving payments can be done across board. It can be done with Alipay, it can be done with Google Pay, Apple Pay, and every other payment option. So we've tried to solve that problem. But at the same time, what we are trying to grow into is to make sure that we are able to integrate an escrow system where if a Chinese person is trying to buy from a Nigerian, there's a way we can have the money in between. And then when fulfillment is done, we are able to release the payments to the seller. So that way there's some form of guarantee for what they are purchasing.
Okay, another issue, you talked about language barrier. How is this addressing the language barrier per se?
So most of what we are showing the Chinese people is in Chinese. And at the same time, I'm a very vibrant CEO working in this company as well. I mean, I'm an employee of the company. So I myself, for one, I speak Chinese. So when it comes to language barrier, because we are still at that particular level where it's slightly manageable, I'm able to jump in to, to help these Chinese companies find exactly what they need from African buyers. We are already incorporated in Senegal, and we are fast growing into other African countries to see how we can bridge the gap, basically. So I think language barrier, as at the moment, is not a big issue. Francophone countries, I was in France just a few days ago, and Francophone countries are coming on board because they need agro products in high quantity. I know mango is coming from Costa Rica, banana from these other places, but we have these things in abundance in Nigeria. And I strongly believe if they're able to find suppliers in Africa, if they're able to find, a middle person that is going to make sure the logistics or the supply chain is guaranteed, these people will opt for Africa because Africa has these products and they are mostly non-GMO products, and I mean, the quality is usually high.
Okay, let's talk about policies and, of course, maybe governmental framework now, because we are looking ahead now. So, in your opinion, what key policies or strategies should the country, maybe at the government level, adopt to turn these global trade shifts into long-term economic gains?
So, you know how I feel like the policies that need to change is, diplomatic policies. Okay. There should just be enhanced diplomatic relationship between these countries and Africa. It's not just enough for you to, have diplomatic missions going to actually have certain conversations about enhancing trade relations. I'll still give an example that Nigerian peanut has embargo in China at the moment. And I remember once we had demand, we had to fulfill those demands from a country like Senegal. And a lot of those products, Nigeria has even better quality. Mm-hmm. So I think developing some form of policy that encourages sister city relationship between these countries and Nigeria or Africa as a whole will have a way to enhance our trade relationships with them. So typically, we don't need to do too much as SMEs or as business owners or as manufacturers in Nigeria or supply chain experts in Nigeria. All we just need to do is to know that our country has a great sister city relationship when it comes to agriculture for certain products. And what we do is leverage on that sister city relationship and make sure our products keep moving to those countries because those countries see us as their own as well. So it's no longer going to be a back and forth thing for every product we want to develop. We have to go have a conversation about it. That gets tiring.
Okay, I get all of that now. It's a good thing you talked about agriculture, because we need to talk about this balance of trade imbalance, as it were, because most times when we talk about export and all that, it's mainly more about petroleum and, the value chain. But in your conversation, you mentioned mangoes, you mentioned coffee and all of that. Now, so what other value chain can we really tap into as a country, as business people, so that we can actually explore all of them in this wake of trade wars, agriculturally, that is?
So, fresh produce, Nigerians in diaspora, they consume a whole lot of Nigerians' fresh produce. And apart from Nigerians in diaspora, let me take, I'll give you an example with France. Right? When you go to France, there's a part of France called Rungis. Now, I visited Rungis and realized that there's a whole, almost 70 to 80% of agro fresh produce coming into France. A great percentage of them is not coming from Africa. And that is because a lot of those companies have been burnt before. I'll give an example. There is a company in Rungis in Paris that once invested over $80,000 trying to get agro produce from Africa. And what happened? The person sent him pictures and eventually, something happened and that transaction didn't get fulfilled. So when we went to Rungis to have conversations with them, what they mentioned is that sometimes the African products don't meet exactly the quality that they need or the specifications of what they need.
Okay.
I had to actually convince some of them, so many times to try African mango. Now, one of them is actually bringing in peanuts from Togo, and he does more than 6 tons of peanut. That's for one company every single week. And there's a company that is able to fulfill those demands. So I think when it comes to our products from Africa to these other countries, Europe or South America, we just need to be intentional about the specification and the quality of what they need. If we can meet those specification and packaging, then there's a huge market for us out there.
All right, thank you so much, Kenechukwu. This has been a very fascinating conversation. We do appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jay.
All right, now, as we round off now, one thing is clear. Trade wars might shake up global market, but they also open new doors. Nigeria has the potential to step up, but only if we take the right steps in trade policy, infrastructure, and business strategy. For Nigerian businesses, the world is watching. The question is, are we ready? Well, that's our show for today. Thanks for joining us. I am Justin Akadonye. See you again next time. Bye for now.